All right, guys, welcome to the Onelife Podcast. My guest today is Crystal. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
She's a life coach and breathwork coach. Very excited to talk to you. Let's get into the life coaching.
Yeah.
What makes you a life coach?
Really helping people take their lives from good to great, or maybe not so good to great, and helping them start to take the actions, move out of procrastination, self-doubt, and those things, so they can start taking action and creating the life that they deeply desire.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that, and what got you into that?
So 2019, I went through my coaching certification, and I was a cocktail waitress at the time. I've been a cocktail waitress for 15 years. So I was really looking for a way to transition.
Have you been to Vegas for a while?
Yeah, like 24
Okay.
years. Yeah.
Did you get caught up in Pretty Girl, making easy money on the strip, and now suddenly, hey, I need to do something else?
Yeah, and I was really burnt out, and really for a couple years trying to figure out what am I going to do after this, because I know it can't go on forever.
I feel like a lot of people going through that struggle. Yeah.
Yeah, I went through a few different things before. I was doing a coaching session with my friend, receiving a coaching session, and I was like, oh, this is my shit. Like, I could do this. I have my bachelor's in psychology, so I've always been really interested in psychology and the mind and people's behavior and things like that. So I went through that coaching program, and then as I was trying to figure out when I was going to transition and completely stop cocktailing and just do coaching, COVID 2020, everything shut down. And so I was like, oh, it's going to be now.
Your hand was forced.
Yeah.
Were you a go-getter before that, or did you procrastinate that yourself? Is this something you filled your own void and then you're able to help others, or you feel like you were just that person from day one?
So I got interested in that and just trying to figure out what the fuck is wrong with me. I spent a lot of my life in addiction and just trying to figure out, like, why do I feel this way? Why do I not give a shit about myself? Like, my worth feels low, things like that.
What type of addiction?
Drug and alcohol.
Okay.
Yeah.
What led you down that path, you think?
It started when I was really young. Like, the first time I ever drank, I was probably like 12 or 13.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah, and we had moved and just starting to make new friends and feeling really uncomfortable and like kind of having a hard time making friends. Like, the girls didn't like me, so I hung out with the guys, and then, the girls talk shit and things like that. But then it was just a way to develop, connection with people.
Was it you trying to fit in?
Yeah.
I had another guest previously say the exact same thing.
Yeah, we moved a lot when my parents were in the military.
Okay.
So we moved a lot.
So you never got a chance to really build rapport and make good friends.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think, like, my mom always said it was easy for me to make new friends, but I think it really, as I've done my own work, realizing, like, no, it's really anxious for me. Like, it was really hard for me, especially at that age, to up and leave, and I was not happy about it.
Gotcha.
And so it was just a way to cope and a way to feel better and more relaxed. And
do you think a lot of military kids in military families go through what you went through? You think it's pretty common, or you think it's more like a for you thing?
I don't know. I don't know that I would say that it's super common. I know that the moving constantly can be really difficult, especially for kids, and not having that, like, groundedness, that stability.
I mean, my school friends were my friends my entire life.
Yeah.
Yeah, whereas you didn't get the opportunity to have that.
No, I don't have that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, and I can relate where I've moved so many times since school, and it's so hard to have close friends because I've moved so many times, and now I'm in a different country.
Yeah.
So I get it as an adult, but I couldn't imagine how hard it was as a kid.
Yeah. The longest I ever lived anywhere other than Las Vegas now, it seems that as I was an adult, and I was like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, this is what I'm saying.
Get your friends, get you network.
Yeah, but other than that, it was 9 years, just outside of Chicago. But other than that, it was like every couple years, or maybe even shorter than that.
Yeah, your life.
So you just start to make really good friends, and then it's like, gotta go.
That's gonna be hard. That's gonna be really hard.
Yeah.
So that led you kind of drinking and alcohol. Was it environmental, to, like, people you're hanging out with, or was it peer pressure?
I think it was definitely the people around. It was a small town, so I mean, there wasn't really much to do anyway. So all the kids just kind of party, and then it's like got into like harder drugs, and it was on and off for a while. And there's been, various levels, various degrees of addiction, but always something pretty consistently for about 25 years.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to jump in.
No,
does that help relatability when you get your clients coming through who have addictions and then trying to turn their lives around?
Yeah, it actually really does. I actually facilitate breath work at a couple different recovery centers in town.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I love doing that work because what I've found, there's seems to be like the underlying thing is like self-worth and purpose, right? Having something, being connected to something bigger than you, whether it's, spirituality or like, I want to make this change in the world or whatever that is.
Finding like a true purpose.
Yeah. But then that self-worth and that connection with yourself, which I feel like a lot of us are lacking. We weren't taught any of that stuff, right? We weren't taught to, trust our inherent wisdom. We were taught actually the opposite. Right? Not to trust yourself, be quiet, listen to adults, like don't question things.
Don't question.
And all of those things start to
schooling 101.
Yeah.
I'm 43, so I don't know how similar age you are, but it's the same thing. Don't ask questions, don't talk back, do what you're told, color inside the lines, don't be creative.
Yeah.
And it just molds you to be a worker and just to fit in. And I feel like we should do the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of undoing, right?
Undoing is a good word.
Like excavating all of those things and bringing them up and bringing them out, because a lot of times they're so subconscious we don't even realize that they're playing in our minds, that they're playing out in loops in our lives. People are playing out patterns they don't even realize. And so when you can just sit and listen to someone talking about the things that are coming up and you start to see those patterns and we can point that out to them and bring that awareness to them, that's where like things start to shift.
Okay,
really,
that's
really
interesting.
beautifully.
We're touching on so many things. I want to stick. No, you're fine. I just want to make sure we go back to the core of the coaching.
Yeah.
Because we'll touch on the breath work, but we'll just touch like 10 things. I was like, okay, I want to talk about this, and this.
Yeah.
So as far as like the coaching itself, like you get qualified. Did you find that you were able to change your own life for a better, and then that helped motivate you to do other people?
Yeah, at the same time, I was starting to go through my own kind of journey of growth and awakening and self-exploration. But where things really shifted for me is that a little bit later in 2020, I specifically remember being on a run, and it was after we had like a weekend of a lot of partying and feeling really just low and upset with myself and that whole kind of loop. And thinking like, this isn't where I see myself going. When everything shut down and I was so excited and I thought, oh, I'll have so much time to be able to, grow my business and focus on that and do all the things that I have told myself I don't have time to do while working my job. And
which probably wasn't true anyway, was it?
Yeah, that's why I like the story.
Yeah, just a good excuse.
So I really saw myself like going off in this direction. I was like, way up over here. And I just thought to myself, I was like, this isn't congruent. Like, I can't keep drinking and partying and doing all these things while I'm trying to help people better their lives.
Doesn't make sense, doesn't it?
No, it's completely,
you're contradicting yourself. And you're contradicting like your potential clients too. Okay. So how did you do that? Was it changing friends and environment? Was that just isolating yourself?
So
here we go.
A little bit before I had found Kundalini yoga, right? And I think that was kind of like a jumping off point, because things just started coming up and clearing them out of my body, because we hold on to trauma emotions in our body. And during that time, when I finally got tired of my own shit and I was like, this has to be done, right?
Tired of your own shit. I like that.
Yeah, I got tired of my own shit and I was like, okay, the drinking really I didn't feel like was the problem. The drugs were the problem, right? And then the 5 days that I didn't want to do anything afterwards. So I was like, the drinking has to stop. And
were you enjoying yourself while you're doing it? Or were you just
so much fun.
Okay. I love the honesty. No, I love the honesty.
I had so much fun. When I look back, and I had so much fun. We did so much wild shit. Like, we had so much fun. All of my friends were also cocktail waitresses, so we were all in that environment
in the industry,
for years.
See, I did the partying and stuff, but I always went to the gym. So no matter how hard I partied Friday, Saturday night, I knew Monday morning I was back in the gym. And that kept me on track.
Yeah.
And to be completely honest, that's what kept me in check. And I saw a lot of people who didn't have that habit, and they fell off the bandwagon and they really let go.
Yeah.
So I was lucky I had that since the age of 17.
Oh yeah, you are. I was just thinking like, you're lucky.
Yeah,
you
didn't have that grounded. Were you doing any activity or sports, or you just like partied and then just switched off for the 5 days?
Well, I started working out a little bit when I met my partner, because he worked out in the gym more, and I would work out, but it wasn't like a really like strong thing in my life.
Yeah.
I like to party more than I give a shit about working out. But then when I party, even if I do like working out, or I do like going to Kundalini, or I do like all these things, I don't do the things that I like because I feel like shit. And that was actually one of the thoughts that I had was, this doesn't make any sense. I'm doing this thing that makes me feel like shit, makes me feel low, all of these things. And then I sacrifice all the things that I do love doing and that make me feel really good to keep doing this thing that's fun in the moment. But
your balance was up. Whereas my balance was the other way. I was able to party a little bit, but my core was there, and you were the opposite way.
Yeah, no, I'm all in.
So you slowly shifted that, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So my last weekend partying was 4th of July weekend. So July 4th is like my first, like my sober date.
Okay.
And then I started looking into more breath work, and breath work was what helped me get into my body and start feeling my emotions and start getting comfortable with the emotions, right? Because those are the things that we're trying to numb, is the uncomfortable emotions that we don't know how to deal with. We don't want to feel, right? Because they suck.
What type of stuff are you feeling?
Just anger, frustration, like things from growing up, not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy. A lot of resentment towards myself for, situations that I put myself in that were unhealthy, that were like not the best situations.
Did you have a good family, good like environment, like growing up?
Yeah, I didn't have any like craziness. It's just moving, right? Instability. And so a lot of times when we're growing up, the things that we hold on to because our brain is still developing, right? We perceive things one way, even though when we can look at them with our adult mind, that's not really that way. So it's more like what I made the things to me
at a early age.
Yeah,
that's interesting. So you had a good family, you had a good upbringing. It was just the moving, and that caused so much like drama, and not drama. That caused so much kind of heartache that came out later on.
Yeah, just kind of confusion and not knowing who I was. And
that's pretty interesting. Yeah, because it doesn't seem like that big a deal, but obviously to you it was.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So what got you into the breath work?
Well, doing Kundalini yoga, and I just love that.
Because yoga's all about breathing, right?
Yeah, so Kundalini is a little bit different than regular yoga in that it's a little bit more active and much more yang, right? Much more active. And so it's focused on breathing, movement, meditation, and chanting, which is kind of where it gets weird for some people. But you're doing these accelerated breathing, and then you hold it, and then, you push all the energy up to your brain, your pineal gland. And that's when you feel high, and it releases DMT too.
Oh, really?
And so like sometimes I get really cool visuals, and I would feel high, and I was like, oh, I love this.
This is good for me.
I was like, I don't have to take anything.
Yeah.
This is amazing. So a mentor of mine kept encouraging me to look more into breath work. And so I actually started doing that one day. I found an online
class. Where'd you get a mentor from?
Huh?
Where does the mentor come from? Like, how did he come across a mentor?
I just through someone else that I knew that I was like, oh, I saw this person and he was like amazing. And I was like, oh, I want that number. Because I was always searching, like, who can teach me? Who can help me? Like, what do I need to do? So just always kind of searching for that extra help and that awareness and the insights and figuring myself out.
That's interesting. How important is that to find someone like that, you think?
I think it's absolutely important. I think it's absolutely important, especially when you're starting out, because they can see things in you that you can't see, whether it's being able to point out like your strengths and the beautiful things about you that you don't realize, or like, hey, this is the pattern that I'm seeing playing out, or this is a different perspective for you to play with, for you to, try and embody and live out in your life. I think it's
also
so
too. I feel like friends, boyfriends, partners, they're not real with you because they don't want to offend you.
Oh, not mine.
Oh, well, that's a good thing.
Mine is like,
it's hard to find friends who will actually tell you the truth.
Yeah.
That's why I feel like a mentor or a coach.
Or they're like kind of like sucked up in the same shit that you are, right? Well, so their perspective is the same as yours. You need someone that's coming from a different level of mind.
I like that.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the breath work, what happened there? You started like doing it, getting a natural high, and that kind of transitioned you from drinking and drugs into that?
Well, I stopped drinking, and then I found my first breathwork teacher. I did one of his classes on a Sunday. I cried my ass off on the floor, and
talk to me about that. What comes out there? I see it on videos. I've never seen it firsthand.
Yeah.
Why people emotionally breath? Like when I've done breath work, it's so emotional. But I was more speechless.
Yeah.
And all this going on, but I didn't feel like saying anything. I didn't feel like crying, but I didn't feel like laughing.
Yeah.
So what what makes someone emotional and crying? And
I mean, it's all the things that we've been holding on to inside, right? That we haven't sat and processed or dealt with. So the body, there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. And it's about how the body holds on to trauma and emotions when we don't express them, when we don't process them, or even if there's something that you need to say and you catch yourself in that moment, holding your breath, not saying it, it locks it in your body. And so the breath and the body have this beautiful way of working together and bringing up whatever needs to come out.
Interesting.
And so it's just releasing of all of these old things that you've been holding on to. Sometimes I would cry and I had no idea what I was crying about, but I was like, cool, I'm just going to cry. Sometimes I know exactly what it is. And it's
I was going to say, so sometimes you do know what it is.
Yeah.
How, when you know what it is, it's stuff from like, at what age are you seeing?
Whenever, like young. I remember one time I went into breath work for something that was coming up. It was like not feeling good enough. And I saw this vision of when I was little. My mom was a cake decorator for a while. And my friends would come over and we would make cakes or cookies or whatever the thing is. And the vision that I saw was that she was telling my friend that the thing that she made, like it was good. She was like, oh, that's so good. And like all these things. And I was like, well, why isn't she telling me mine is good? Is mine not good? And then, and it's these things that you look at as an adult and you're like, well, that's just, she was, encouraging the other one. That doesn't reflect on me. But as a child, you don't have those like reasoning logic. I feel like it was like 8, 7, 8.
That's crazy.
9. Yeah.
So that's kind of come up.
Yeah.
So you've taken that, suppressed that, and then 20.
You don't even realize it's playing out.
That's crazy
in your life, and things not that far back. But I mean, but like
even something a year ago,
they can go so far back.
And we're probably suppressing stuff all the time and not realizing it because it's easier.
Yeah,
it's a lot easier.
Yeah, even just like in a moment. Let's say someone says something and it triggers you. But like you're in a work meeting and so you can't like fly off the handle or cry or whatever the case is.
I can relate to that.
And you got to like push it down and like, okay, we'll deal with it later. Most people don't deal with it later. They just push it down and they keep moving, right? And they keep going. And then they wonder why they feel anxious. They feel overwhelmed. Like as soon as you're even sharing an intention for breath work, you're already starting to cry, or 3 breaths in, it's already coming on.
That's interesting.
Because you've been holding on to this shit for so long.
Do you think a lot of it is we're always distracted, we're always busy, and we never take time for ourselves? We never have quiet time.
Yeah.
And I've heard this a lot. It's like, I take quiet time now, but it's something I had to actually be aware of. Yeah. So we never stop, and even driving the car with no music, no audiobook, no nothing going on. And just being up here in your mind and being present for once. Yeah,
and being in our body, right? Like for some people it's very uncomfortable, especially people who have been in addiction, right? Being in your body, drinking, drugs take you all out of your body, right? Gotcha. You don't feel your feelings, you don't feel those things. That's why such a huge part of after addiction and recovery is like reconnecting with your body, because we don't want to feel this. It's fucking uncomfortable. Like I don't want to feel like tightness in my chest that's like anxiety or hurt, or like this like gut-wrenching feeling of, someone who hurt me or somebody that I hurt myself. Like I don't want to feel that. And it's
especially when you've already been through it.
Yeah.
You don't want to go back through the
right,
same thing.
because it's like reliving it, but it
doesn't
you don't
have
go
to through it again.
Yeah, it doesn't. You don't have to relive it, but you do have to sit with that sensation, right? You don't have to relive the moment. But sitting with the sensation in your body takes 90 seconds for a cycle of emotion to move through the body, right?
Oh, really?
If it's longer than that, then there's a story tied to it. There's a little bit more behind that. But for the most part, in a moment, if I feel myself getting anxious, if I can just sit for 90 seconds in that anxiety or in that frustration or whatever it is and breathe into it and just give it space, not resist it, then it gives it room to move and dissipate.
You're leaning into it. You're leaning into something discomfort.
Obstacle is the way,
right? Yeah. That's a great book.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. Yeah. How long did you go through the crying, the emotions before you kind of came clear, I guess, or came good?
So I cry less. I cry less when I do breath work, but there's always things we're like onions, right? And like there's layers, and sometimes I'm like, I thought I dealt with that. Like, why is this coming up again? But it was for the first while, probably like the first like year and a half. Like it was just, there's just things coming up and clearing out. Think of how I'm 40. Okay, so all of this time till I was 37, 38. I was drinking, doing drugs, suppressing my emotions, right? And all of that is like, that's all the shit you got to clear out, right? Think of like how stacked up that is. You're not going to clear that out in a day or 2 days or even a year.
Yeah,
right?
You did it for a while.
It's an excavation process.
So you spent a long time building that and suppressing that. Yeah, I'm
building up my stores.
I'm thinking 1 or 2 years, but I mean, you've got a good couple of years in there of doing that. That's crazy. Were you excited or were you dreading doing breath work, knowing that that was to come?
Well, I loved it. I was excited. And so, because afterwards it feels so cathartic. You feel so much lighter. You feel so much more yourself, right? Because you're like offloading shit.
So you knew you're coming out better each time.
Yeah.
And
plus you get all the high feelings in your body. So
did that kind of motivate you to do it more, knowing that you're slowly improving?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though as hard as it was.
Good. It felt good.
Yeah.
And that's probably, if it didn't feel good, I probably wouldn't have like dove in so much. But it feels amazing afterwards.
Yeah, knowing what's coming and not knowing how extreme it's going to be, it's got to be a little daunting. But knowing that you're coming out better each time. Yeah. So you've still got work to go, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we always have work to go.
Yeah, but I mean, are you still bringing up stuff in the past that you're dealing with? Or
no, now it might be like something that comes up in my day. I'm like, okay, I'm going to come back and I say breathe on it, right? So I'm going to breathe on that and find out like what's the root of that? Like what's really going on? What's really coming up for me? But now most of the time when I go into breath work, it's for creativity, ideation, connecting just to myself, or even like when I go do a post on social media, like I'll do breath work and like what's on my heart, like what does this post look like? That's I do it for a lot of creation and for flow state.
That's very interesting. How do you do your breath work?
So it's a conscious connected breath, 2 active inhales, 1 passive exhale.
What does that mean exactly?
So when you're breathing, you're taking 2 full breaths and then you exhale and then you just like exhale and let it go. Like it's not a forceful breath or anything like that.
Is there a time on the in and outs?
No, it's at your tempo, your pace. When I cue people, a lot of times the first song, it's just kind of getting comfortable with it and finding that pace that works best for you. And then, you know, a little bit later, I'll cue them to pick it up a little bit, breathe a little bit faster, deeper. Once the diaphragm opens up and you get nice and warmed up.
Is it first thing in the morning? Is it a daily thing? Is it by yourself? Is it in a group?
All of the above. No.
What about for you personally? I guess. What is
for me?
What is your breathwork routine? I guess. When do you do it? How long do you do it for? How do you do it?
Yeah. So for a while it was daily. Now I definitely meditate and do like a lighter breath work, and then a lot of times if I need help, kind of like getting into my creativity and things like that, I'll go into breath work. It might not be daily. It's almost every day though. Okay. And I do a couple different things. I can take myself through the breath work and just kind of give myself the cues. And that's usually about like, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes. Okay. So it's a fair while. Yeah. So there's an app. This might be taking a whole nother direction, but there's an app that I'm a coach on, and it's got pre-recorded breathwork sessions. Yeah. And so those sessions, sometimes I'll use those to guide me through.
That's what I normally use.
Those are like 22 minutes. There's a couple like quick sessions, like 8 minutes that I'll do in the car sometimes. And
wow.
Do like a quick
What's it like in the car?
It's the same as it is.
I never thought about that in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to the life coaching for a minute.
Yes.
I'm a client. I come to you. What do you do? Where do you start? What do we talk about?
Well, I want to hear what's coming up for you, like what your vision is, where you are right now. Like I want to hear about the things that you feel like are blocking you. And typically in that conversation, I can start to spot, you know, patterns and blocks and things that are coming up and start to bring better awareness to you. I like to narrow in on one thing that we want to focus on. And so I am the type of person that I love to have a bunch of different things going on. And I've realized through my own work that when we zero in on that one thing, we can be so much more powerful and effective. And so I kind of use that with my clients as well. Like, let's pick one area to focus on. Because the fact is also, everything's integrated, right? Everything is connected. And so let's say your relationship is shit, but business is amazing. Your friendships are amazing, but like your personal relationship is not where you want it to be. Even just working on that specific thing and bringing that level up will affect everything else in
100% agree.
life.
100% agree. Is there a certain thing that you generally go to first, or is it different for everybody?
It's different for everybody. It depends on what's coming up. But you kind of notice like general themes that come up in people, right? A lot of times with the people that I work with, it's like low self-worth or procrastination, imposter syndrome. It seems to be a lot of like the same kind of themes, but how we're going to get there for everybody is different.
Gotcha. Is that, when you ask that question, do people know the answer, or how do you kind of dig deep to find that out? Because I feel like if people knew the answer, they probably know what to do. Or is it people just not wanting to take action, the accountability?
Yeah, I feel like people, so there's a range, right? It depends on the level of awareness. And sometimes it's helping bring more awareness to that person. And a lot of times they just kind of feel stuck and they're not really sure what it is. They have an idea. Even what I've experienced is a lot of times people even have a really great idea of what they need to do, but they don't want to do it. And so they're looking for a different answer, right?
So that's accountability.
Yeah. And so it's having someone there like helping you walk through it. Or sometimes, this is where I want to be, but it's really big and overwhelming. Like, how do I get there? So helping break it down
in a little bit more manageable. Little baby steps. Okay. That's interesting. So give me some examples of, you don't have to talk about certain people, but what type of things have you seen? What type of things have you implemented for those people?
So to me, at the core, it's really about bringing everyone into their power and into their worth, right? And so what I've experienced is that by bringing people, so using the coaching to get that focus where they want to go, where they want to be, and start to create that vision and start aligning with their values. And then I bring in the breath work, right? And so the breath work really helps them get a little bit more into their body about the things, regulating their nervous system. And so it starts to bring them back into their authentic, whole, like true selves, right? Before you started picking up, ideas of not being worthy or not being good enough and things like that. And from that space, people step more into their power. They're more focused. They're more productive. They feel lighter and more expansive. And so when you're able to disconnect from all of those stories that you've been telling yourself for years, you're more able to take action on the things that maybe before felt too big and daunting for you.
Okay. I like how you say lighter. How do you explain lighter? Because I know what you're talking about, but how do you explain lighter to someone who hasn't done this type of stuff?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay. So it's literally a body feeling of lightness, right? We can feel in our body when something feels heavy or we feel that tightness, like that pressure, weight on that constriction. Yeah.
Okay.
And when you feel that lightness, your body literally feels light. Like it doesn't feel like that heavy weight is on your shoulders. It doesn't feel like all the tightness and the tension, right? Have you ever seen someone who just walks around and they're just really tight? And that's just like things that we're holding on to. And then so you feel it's almost like a fluidity and like a lightness about you.
Like a sense of freeness and also getting grounded, I think, too, at the same time.
Yeah, because you're more present, right? Present in the here and now, not functioning from the past or projecting into the future of what, I'll be happy when. You're here in the here and now and fully in your power. Like, this is what I have control over.
Do you feel like the more you do that, the more lightness you experience and the more grounded and free you become?
Absolutely.
Like you keep getting new layers.
Yeah. Yeah. You start to master your mind, right? Because the mind will take us off into stories, and you start to master your mind and you start to recognize the stories or the thoughts that are coming up that aren't serving you. Right? Or those things that come up that, maybe you talk bad to yourself, right? And you're like, oh, you're so fucking stupid. You start to notice those things and you're like, nope, like that's yeah.
That's
and so it's funny how like that, like you start to bring the awareness in and then you start noticing it and you still do it. And it may take you like a couple minutes to notice and you're like, oh shit, I did it again. Right? And then eventually you start to notice it like right as you're saying it. And you're like, no, different. Like that's not, I don't choose that, right? Because we all have a choice and it's bringing people out of that, I don't want to say victim, but out of that powerlessness, right? Into their power to realize like, We can create what we want. We can choose what we want. And we're in control. We can be in control of our mind, our thoughts, our actions, instead of being at the effect
And it's
of
like
life.
what you think about is what you become, and what you tell yourself is what you're going to become. And it's funny, it's been so many years since I broke free of that. And what I've broken free the last couple of years is, if this happens, I never self-doubt myself at all. When this happens, when I'm talking to so-and-so, when I hit so-and-so amount of podcasts.
Yeah.
I never if, when, but it's always 100% definitive, I guess. And I learned, and you kind of, when you're saying you catch yourself, I catch myself instantly. And I've caught myself so many times now that it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And it becomes like a new blueprint or DNA of how you talk to yourself.
It becomes your new program, right?
New program is a good way to put it. The self-doubting beliefs. Talk to me more about that. I feel like we all have them. Why do we have them? Is it childhood? Is it, like you said, is it interpreting things wrong? Is it just lack of confidence in ourselves?
Yeah, I believe that everything does go back to our childhood, because, so you may have heard this before. So from the ages of 0 to 7 is where we get the majority of our programming.
Literally
right?
heard that the other day.
Yeah. And we pick those up from the people that are surrounding us and the things that we witness as a child. And so our brain is literally in a theta state when we're in that age, because we're taking in so much external cues about how to be loved, how to be accepted, all of these things. And we're literally like learning about how to survive in life. And so we take in other people's thoughts, their beliefs, the things that they say, and we don't have that, logic reasoning part of our brain on board yet. And so then we start to create those stories, and they start to be like in our brain, in our subconscious. And then now as adults, our subconscious mind rules 95% of the things we do, think, believe, how we act.
Our subconscious mind.
Yeah, and that 95% of it. So here's what tripped me out is I don't remember barely anything from 0 to 7, but all of those things that I experienced are driving the way that I'm acting, the things that I'm thinking, the things that I'm saying, how I'm feeling.
As an adult 20, 30 years later.
Yeah, shit that I don't even remember.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's like an autopilot, right? And so it's starting to reprogram that autopilot into one that serves you, that's more healthy and productive.
How does someone reprogram themselves?
So that's what I like to use the breath work for.
Okay.
Right? So what happens when we start doing the breathing pattern is we're going to bring a ton of oxygen into the body, more than most people are used to, because a lot of people aren't conscious of their breath and they're not taking full deep breaths throughout the day.
Let's actually touch on that.
Okay.
So breathing in general, right?
Yeah.
Most of us aren't breathing properly.
Yes.
We're shallow mouth breathing.
Yeah.
And we should be breathing through our nose. And basically our mouth doesn't really need to open at all.
Well, what's wild is even if you talk a lot, you're doing a bunch of mouth breathing, right? So you're breathing really shallow, a lot of times really rapid. If you're super focused, if you're stressed out, and we breathe shallow and we just breathe into our chest, and you can just see people's chest, moving.
And you can hear it too.
Yeah, or your shoulders are in your ears.
Yeah. So I'll just touch on this. I've been doing like the cold plunges a lot lately. Mind breathing. Do you do cold?
So we have a sauna at home. So I'll sit in the sauna for a little bit and then I'll go hop in the pool right now.
Okay,
it's cold.
perfect. It's freezing. Yeah, it was like 45 degrees this morning. It's freezing. Do you find the cold has helped with your nose breathing?
Not that I've noticed.
Really? So that's been one of the main things I've noticed is the ability to like actually really breathe in from my nose. And I keep my mouth shut a lot more now.
Do you do mouth taping?
I've done that.
Have you heard of that?
I did. Yeah, it was amazing. I loved it. I thought I was going to freak out, but I actually felt really good. I slept really well. I recovered really well.
Yeah.
But what I was going to touch on, the fact I'm able to breathe through my nose a lot better now. I do Muay Thai and I'm struggling getting my butt kicked, but
yeah.
Or the other day I got a massage and they're literally like beating the crap out of me. It's like reflexology where they shake you around.
Yeah.
And I was able to stop, relax. My body's under stress. Shut my eyes, breathe through my nose.
So, okay, yes, that's you
Game
self-regulating, right? Regulating your nervous system. And that I can see the cold helping you with, right? Because you're putting stress on the nervous system.
Exactly the same.
And then bringing yourself back like, okay. And So here's a cool thing. When we breathe through the nose, that activates our parasympathetic.
Yeah.
Our sympathetic is activated by our mouth. So the inhale is activating the sympathetic. The exhale is activating the parasympathetic.
Gotcha.
So when you can breathe out really, really slowly, you signal to your body, like, we're good, bring everything back online. Your heart rate drops, your blood pressure drops, your brain comes back online. Because, when we're in fight or flight, the brain is not online.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, and that's what I'm finding under stressful situations, like Muay Thai, like getting my butt in a massage, like cold therapy. I'm able to stay under control.
Yeah.
And I'm present and I'm in control. I'm not like short breathing, mouth breathing, anxious, stressed.
Freaking out.
I'm actually, I would say, if I could explain it anyway, I'm leaning into it. I'm pushing into it.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. Because you're signaling to your body, like, hey, this is uncomfortable, but like, we're good.
I got this.
So your body's like, okay.
I was in the cult this morning. I got this.
Yeah.
This is just someone throwing me around on the bed.
Yeah. Isn't it cool how it just like, what's the word? It just emanates into everything in your life.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I'm finding.
Connects to everything.
Yeah, little things here and there, different cues, different situations. I'm like, I got this. This is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally forgot where we're at. Do you remember where we're at before I jumped in?
We were talking about breath work and the way that we breathe.
Oh, yeah. Talking about, so we're talking about the breathing, talking about how we don't breathe right, but I cut you off before you had.
So when we start doing the breathing pattern, right, and we're focusing on breathing into our diaphragm instead of into the chest, we're bringing a ton more oxygen into the body, right?
That's where we're at.
More than most of us are used to. And so what happens is the oxygen starts going to our brain, and it helps shut down our prefrontal cortex, which is where our inner critic is, our overthinking mind, our logical linear mind.
Okay.
We get super connected to the subconscious, the intuition.
Really?
And in that space...
So you bypass... that's interesting.
Yeah. And so the technique that I do is hypno breath work, right? So then in that space, we use the hypnosis or the hypnotic cues to guide someone to bring about more awareness, more insight into what's this thing that's coming up for you. Like, feel into the emotions, allow your body to feel the emotions and like kind of sitting with those so we can clear them out of the body with the breath. And then guiding them like, okay, when was the first time you ever felt that way? Right. And just kind of seeing that and bringing new like perspective and compassion. A lot of the work that I do is go back to that inner child, right? Go back to that child who felt unsafe, who felt unseen, who felt unworthy. Like, as a you that you are now, what do you want to say to them? Like, what do you want them to know? It's wild how powerful that is when you are visualizing your younger self feeling that way. And then you go back and you be that thing that they needed, that support, that guidance, and you have compassion and love for them. And like, that's wildly healing inside. I cannot explain to you why, but it is, and it's amazing.
Are you communicating with them afterwards and then letting them go back in, or are you literally stopping?
No, I just take them through the breathwork session and then we kind of integrate it afterwards. Okay.
And then you're kind of not setting homework, but you're kind of setting them up for the next time. Like, when you get back here, this is what I want you to do.
Well, so no, I don't tell them. So in the breath work, that's usually the last thing. Like, okay, what's the next action step you need to take to fully step into your worth or to start to make this vision a reality or whatever that is? And typically an action step or something that they need to do will come up in the breath work. And I look at those as golden breadcrumbs from your higher self, from your intuition, however you like to look at it, from source. And when you start taking those actions, things just kind of unfold in really like beautiful and magical ways.
So you're kind of doing it yourself. So you're kind of guiding them to start off with, but they're kind of unveiling this themselves.
It's all bringing you back to your own inner wisdom, right? Because that's the other part is everyone wants an answer from outside of themselves, but the answers are all within you. And that's what the breathwork taught me is like, oh, I don't need you. I always would go outside to people, right? Having lots of mentors, coaches, things like that. And I learned through doing the breathwork, like, no, I don't need to do that. Let me go into the breathwork, into myself and ask.
That's interesting.
And then let the answers come up. And when the answers come up, maybe it's uncomfortable because I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to do that. And I'm like, oh, that feels kind of big.
That's very interesting because we never go inside, right? We always go for other people's opinions and thoughts and praise. And
that's where it all is.
And approval and permission.
You got to get that in here.
Yeah. And validation. And you see that with social media so much,
for
like
love,
attention, likes, like comments,
all of it.
It's so it really scares me how bad social has made, and that's what being the anxiety and stuff comes from too, right? depression, anxiety, lack of purpose.
Yeah, I think it's all disconnection from yourself.
Disconnection from yourself. Yeah. And distractions.
Mm-hmm.
That's that's very powerful. Now, the more I think about that, that's very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So going inside, taking time, being present, and then diving deep, and then being true of yourself and being honest with yourself, and vulnerable will probably be the best word.
Yeah.
And then dealing with that shit that comes.
Yeah. And then, well, it's amazing because when you get out of the breath work, you feel like a new person, right? That's that lighter feeling. And you feel like, oh, you can feel your sense of strength, your sense of confidence, you know, and we can specifically, if those are things that you're looking to feel, I can specifically take you through the breath work to cultivate and generate those feelings within you. And then you get out of the breath work. And then from that space where your energy is not from fear, is not from lack, is not from I'm a piece of shit, you start to take action from this place of your wholeness, your worthiness, your completeness, your power. And then it's a whole different energy that's fueling the actions that you're taking. And that makes all the difference.
I like that.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
As far as your clients' results, things you've seen, can you share some different things with me that you've done for people?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a wide range. So I've gone through a few different areas of like who do I want to work with, right? And so I had told you before, I work with clients in addiction at recovery centers. Yeah. I've seen some wild, amazing things from them.
Talk to me about that.
Because you know, some of them are vets, and there's a couple different places. One place there was a lot of vets, and so literally hearing just them feeling at peace for the first time in their lives, feeling connected to themselves for the first time in their lives. I've heard people come out of breath work and be like, I can fucking do this. Like I've got this, because they feel like a presence of whatever, you know, source or whatever around them. They've felt their family members connecting to them, people that they've lost, that they've, you know, held on to for so long. They've been in grief and like holding on to that, or in like not resentment, but like guilt and things like that. And then being able to connect with the family member. And then like one guy did a breathwork session specifically around all of that for him. And he got out of the recovery center, and now he's like super into meditation. He's about to be a meditation teacher, and it just like changed his whole entire life. You know, I've had like the most amazing things, just shit people have been holding on to for years. One guy, this was really cool. So it was towards the end, and we did a breathwork session, and it was some inner child work. And he saw for the first time, he came to rehab wanting to know what's the root, right? Where did this all start? Where did this all come from? And so he saw his younger self, that something traumatic had happened to him, and he didn't feel that he could speak up. And he started like stealing out of his grandma's purse. And like, he literally saw, like, he started to go down this path. And he's like, that's where it all came from. Like this child who couldn't speak up, was hurt, like couldn't speak up. And I have so many chills as I talk about it. And he's like, I literally got like the answer that I've been looking for forever, you know, like really profound shit like that. And then there's like, you know, working with entrepreneurs, right? Where one girl, we worked together for 12 weeks, for 3 months. And it was about kind of bringing more presence and stability into her life. And she was able to, you know, start upping her prices instead of, you know, running around and doing everything, saying yes to everything, right? That lack mentality, and stepping into her worth and upping her prices. And then also starting to create new offerings for clients that really lit her up, that she was so fucking excited about, right? She created like a women's group, and she's like, all of the details, right? I'll have them have a piece of paper sometimes so they can write the things that come up. She came out of the breathwork. She's like, it's called this. We're going to do this. Like the coolest ideas and inspiration that like you never would have come up with, just being stuck in your head. Oh yeah, it's so cool. And
then action on top of that.
Oh yeah, it's so juicy.
No, I love how passionate you are about it.
I am. It's so beautiful. So when I think about breath work, there's kind of two ways I look at it. Is like some breath work, the work is unblocking, right? And that's like the deep inner work. And I like to go deep with people, right? 'Cause let's get that shit out of there. So that's unblocking. And then there's flow, right? Where like entrepreneurs and things, we do some unblocking because there's always some shit that's keeping you. But then when we get the things unblocked and cleared out, and then we get them into flow. And then it's like, okay, what do you want to create? And then it's starting to visualize and expand that vision, and then like really see and feel that vision. You start to feel the feelings of that vision of what it's like to be in that moment. Just like Dr. Joe Dispenza, if you're familiar with him, everything he talks about, you fully feel those feelings. You're fully in that experience in the breath work. And then that's manifestation, right? Your brain's like, this is where we're going. And it starts working you towards those things. As long as you're in that vision, fully in that vision, and then feeling all those feelings of that vision.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's cool.
Who, as far as breathwork, is anyone you look up to? Anyone you admire, like Andrew Huberman, Wim Hof? Like, who stands out to you and why?
Well, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he's not breathwork, but he's more like quantum, you know, like all of those things, healing yourself, taking that sovereignty back and being able to heal yourself and taking your power back in that way. But the woman who created hypnobreathwork, her name's Francesca Sipma. She's been my biggest mentor, because when I started learning hypnobreathwork and doing that with her, it taught me how to get very intentional with breathwork, right? Because a lot of times we can go into breathwork and it's just like, okay, whatever comes up, right? Like a shamanic breathwork session, it's not super guided, and it's just like, okay, let's just dig and see what comes up. But with hypnobreathwork, we're very like specific and intentional with where we're going.
Breathwork. That's
you know, like, okay, this is the thing. Like, okay, I know how I'm going to get you here in the breathwork, and it's wildly effective. Yeah, it's very effective, and she created it on her own, and she's been one of my biggest mentors and like expanders. Based? She's in San Diego.
Okay. Oh, so have you met her?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And you just do you see her very often?
Not super often. A few times a year. I mean, like in person.
Yeah.
Like
in person.
online, I see her. Or like in calls and things like that.
Okay, so that's cool. Has that been powerful for you, having access to someone like that?
It has, and it's funny because she, like, her story was kind of very, well, not all of her story. There was a piece of her story that really resonated for me that felt very similar to me, and seeing where she's been able to go just from starting out doing breath work. Right. And like what she's created, and now she's, you know, doing her startup, and she has the app and all of these things, and the things that she's created for herself from this. But by going into the breathwork, using the breathwork for everything to tap into your intuition and your own inner guidance, and then following that inner guidance. Right. And her biggest thing is like, take intuitive action, like breathe on it, get the intuition, get the guidance, and then take the action. Even if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't matter. Take the action, unattached from the result. And so that's like the biggest thing that she's like really like implanted into us, is like, take your intuitive action.
That's interesting, because I'm doing the breath work, but I love how you said intentional breath work. Why am I actually doing this? What am I trying to get out of it?
Yeah.
That kind of like resonated with me.
Let's be efficient. let's be very efficient with it. Let's get what we want, because like, we're not here to fuck around. We're here to like get what we want. So,
and as like the entrepreneur, the creativity, the flow, all that is like, yeah, this sounds amazing. This is where I need to get. This is where I need to take it. I don't feel like I got much. I don't like, it's not drama, but much stuff in the past to bring up. But maybe I do. Yeah. And maybe that'll come with time. But I love the creativity side.
So it's always fun. And she always used to say this, and I've seen this happen with me, is I'll go into breathwork for flow, and I have, you know, my intention, like, this is, you know, where I need guidance, and like nothing's coming up. And in that, I always let my clients know, oh, there's something we need to work through. So it's like, okay, what needs to come up? And it's like, this is not what I want to be in this, you know, breathwork for right now. Like, I just want to go in and get all the fun stuff, like all the creativity and the ideas, see this big expansive vision, and like, yes.
That stuff's probably more
But then
important.
Sometimes it's like, the body's like, nope, we got to go over here. And I'm like, okay. But then as soon as you go over there and you release that thing, and then it's like, okay, here's what you wanted.
So I want to ask you about people who are skeptical. Are you husband, boyfriend, something like that?
Partner for 15 years.
Okay. Is he into this? Okay. Yeah, that's so okay. No. So is he a skeptic? He's just not interested?
I think it's a little bit of both. So I have my own judgments and ideas about what it is. I think he's just scared. He doesn't do like all the, you know, inner spiritual work and things like that.
Does he meditate or anything like that?
No, he doesn't meditate. He did plant ceremony with me once.
Okay.
And he's open to, you know, going back and exploring that some more. But he doesn't meditate. He asked me to take him through breathwork one time, and
Just the one time.
I was pleasantly surprised. He like went in and he was like doing it. He wasn't like slacking off or anything like that. But he's super supportive of it. Like when I was having breathwork like groups at my house when I first started, and I would come inside, he's like, "How's it going?" I was like, "Great." They're all crying. He's like, "Great job, babe." He's like total cheerleader for me and totally supportive. But he's like, it's just not my shit.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay.
No, cool. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah.
I was just curious. When you did it at the house, that's when you first started, right?
Yeah. I wanted to just kind of lead some groups. I started with a group of girlfriends and then.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
How was that? Were they open to it?
It was awesome. Oh, no. Yeah. So these were all like newer friends, not like my cocktail friends.
Oh, okay.
They were all like more like spiritual hippie friends. They were like my Kundalini yoga friends. Yeah.
Okay.
We call ourselves edgy hippies. And so.
Edgy hippies.
So I brought all my hippie friends over.
So they're the right friends.
And they were totally, totally down for it. Yeah. They loved it. And I loved it. And I was like, yes. I was like, they're crying. Like, oh, it's working. This is fucking amazing. And and then so I put together like a 7-week chakra series and had people over once a week and led them through whatever the chakra is. And I loved it. Like immediately I just fucking loved it.
It just started evolving.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any of your older friends come and do it? Like your industry friends?
Yeah, actually. So one of them, when I was practicing, I had her come over and I would practice on her, and it's so wild. She had, I think, one of her ovaries removed. And so she was told she probably won't ever be able to have a baby. And she saw her baby and she's actually like delivering and she's pregnant right now.
Oh, nice.
And like she saw her baby like so clear and vivid. She's like, I saw my child. And I was like, what? Like, wow. And yeah, she's actually like pregnant right now.
And probably more someone who would have been like skeptical more than anything.
Yeah. And a lot of them have come and tried it. So I think for some people, you kind of got to be like ready to look at your shit, because we can't control what comes up, right? Like if something's meant to come up, I've tried that before at one of the recovery centers. I was like, I'm gonna give you guys a really light, easy, fun breathwork session today, and then like some shit came up for someone, and I was like, we like literally can't control it. And so you have to be like ready and willing to look at your shit. Well,
I was going to say, like, say you 10 years ago, you probably wouldn't have been ready to embrace something like this. Do you think? Do you think you gotta, like someone quit smoking, like I'm just sick of doing it, and that they'll make change?
Yeah.
Have you got to be in that state, or is it just finding the right person for the right guidance? I mean, you got to be open to it to a certain point, though, right?
Yeah. So I say that, but then I also think about some of my clients at one of the recovery centers, and they're very skeptical, right? Like vets, like they're like, what the fuck is this girl talking about, right? Like literally I've had them be like, I was like, what the fuck is this bitch talking about? And they're like, and I tell them like, just release all expectations, stay open just for this one time, go all in and just see what happens. If you fucking hate it after that, cool. Like I feel you, it's all good. I think it's for everybody, but not everybody might.
I say the same thing about the cold. I mean, try it, fasting, whatever it is. At least give it a go before you knock it.
Yeah. And I've had many of them and they're like, it's uncomfortable. And I've had many of them also like the first time they're like, it's whatever. And it kind of grows on them. And then they're kind of, and it's almost like the body needs to get comfortable too with what's going on, right? The body needs to feel safe. And if you don't feel safe feeling your emotions, the body's going to, nope, not doing it, right? Okay. Or you're going to check out. And then they're like, I fell asleep. And I'm like, you checked out.
How much difference do you open up saying that with the drugs and the alcohol, do you open up to people? And does that relatability help people give you more of a chance?
When I share my experiences, they are much more open. Like if I share, and it's hard, it's because everyone's kind of in and out at their own pace, right? And so it's not like I start with a class and we're all getting acquainted and I can like share my story, and it's just constantly people in and out. But when I do share with them and someone who didn't know, then they're kind of like, oh,
okay.
It does kind of open them up a little bit.
Yeah,
more.
That's what I thought. And then you're doing retreats, right? Talk to me about your retreats.
So retreat. It's so funny. I find something and I'm like, I'm just going to give this a try, and I dive right in. Right?
I love that. I'm the same.
Yeah.
I'm just going to start a podcast. 60 podcasts later. I'm
No, I love it.
I
love it. I think it's amazing.
Because I look at this, like, the only thing you got when you're old is regret. I wish I started that podcast. I wish I started that class. I wish I did a retreat.
Yeah.
And then you can't do it.
Well, it's in the doing that you find out, like, okay, this is for me, or like, this is not for me.
But planning, procrastinating, perfecting does nothing, right?
Yeah, it doesn't get you anywhere.
Sorry, back to the retreats.
No, it's all good. So I decided I wanted to do retreats. I like creating experiences for people, right? And I love doing so many different things. Like adventure is like a huge value of mine. Freedom, like travel, just fun. I love to have fun. And so there's all these different things that I love to do. And I was like, I want to create something where I can just bring everyone to experience all these amazing things because they've been powerful in my life. So my first one I decided I was going to do in Sedona, and we did like a camping one.
Oh, nice.
It was fucking awesome.
How many people do you have?
It was 12 people.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And it was awesome. And there was a lot of things about it that I learned, like, okay, I do not want to do it this way again.
What type of things?
Well, we did a camping retreat. And so I had like a pop-up camper trailer, like an off-roading one called an Opus. And so I brought that, and like a couple people could sleep in there. And then we did like some tents and like just different things like that. Right. But like where we were camping was just like land, right? It wasn't like at a campsite. And so I had this specific spot in mind, and that spot wasn't available. So we had to stay very fluid, right? And because nothing worked out as it was planned, right? And what I learned is that a lot of times with Mama Sedona as like an energy, like that happens, right? And she tests you. And so we were tested like every single turn, but we did everything ourselves. So like we were cooking, we were doing everything. And so we realized like, okay, we don't necessarily want to do it this way again because there's so many variables out of our control, right? Gotcha. And then like doing all the cooking kind of took us away from the group, and like we want to be in the experiences with a group.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, just things like that. And so we would do Sedona twice a year for like a couple years. And so it like changed and evolved a little bit more each time. And so the last one that we did was actually in St. George.
Oh, is it?
And we had to shift that from Sedona last minute. But it was just as magical. Like the Airbnb that we got was right against the Red Rocks. So it had that Sedona vibe.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And another thing that we learned in the beginning was we wanted to do all of these experiences. We don't have time to do all these things because it's packing it in tight. People need time to settle. And then, so we started kind of learning like, okay, less experiences. And then like, instead of go wide, go deep. Right. And I went to Sedona for 3 weeks last year for shamanic breathwork training, shamanic like modalities training. And that like opened us up to even more things. And we've integrated some of those things and just taking people even deeper.
Okay.
And so now when people come, we do, we were doing 3 days. We're doing a 4-day on our next one. And it's just about diving deep into yourself, right? And just doing that deep inner work into the things that hold you back. And even like, we call it activate your superpowers, right? And so tapping into the energies around you that are there to support you, you know, and all the different ways that you can just like activate your own power. And so, yeah, we have a lot of fun. We do some outdoor things. We do obviously breath work. We do coaching experiences. There's a really cool one that we like to call the keys to your self-worth, to owning your self-worth. And it ties in the chakras. And
okay.
Yeah.
When you say we, is it like multiple?
Oh, me and a girlfriend of mine. Yeah, well, 2 girlfriends.
Who are your girlfriends? What do they specialize in?
So my other girlfriend, Becca, she does breath work with me.
Yeah.
And so she does coaching and breath work. We started doing breath work at the same time. So a lot of like our breathwork journey we've been kind of doing together. Okay. So we do our retreats together. And then the other girl, her name's Megan, and she's a mindset coach. She's fucking amazing.
Oh,
and
nice.
So she brings in this aspect, she's called Activate Your Anthem, but it's basically taking all the nuggets and all the insights and awarenesses and learnings that you got throughout the weekend, and then you make a soundtrack so that we get really amped up and excited about retreats, and there's all these things that we learn, and then we leave, and it's kind of like, how do you hold on to that magic, right? I always say, I wish I could like bottle up this feeling and keep it. And so while you're in that feeling, that energy of all the beauty and the magic that's happening over the weekend, you create a soundtrack, and it's your voice.
On your phone? Just like...
Yeah, she brings equipment.
Okay.
And so it's your voice saying like your affirmations, your truth, like all of these things that you've kind of cultivated over the weekend. And then she puts it over a track.
Cool.
And so you can listen to it.
That's really cool.
And kind of recreate that energy and that magic.
That's interesting. You know David Goggins?
Yeah.
Do you know he takes all the negative comments and records them and listens to them while he runs?
That makes sense for him.
For him.
Yeah.
For him.
Of course he does.
How often are you doing the retreats, and how many people are you getting now?
So we're doing one retreat this year in October in St. George again. And we like to keep it small, no more than 10 or 12 people.
Okay.
Because we like it to be very intimate and go deep. I find that when it's smaller groups, people are more open to going like deep. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then that's that
Thank
beautiful.
you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That was very insightful. I very much enjoyed that. You've got an amazing personality.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.